Hello, I'm Jared Fry, General Manager of Medina TV, and I want to welcome you to our 2019 Candidates Forum. And of course, joining me as always is Jacqueline Rinksmeyer with the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, thank you, Jared. We are once again pleased to partner with Medina TV to offer our viewers an opportunity to become more informed voters for the upcoming November election.
And of course, Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce do not support or endorse any of these candidates. This is just brought to you as an informational way to learn more about the candidates running for office.
All candidates in contested races were invited via certified letter to participate in the interviews today.
So sit back and get informed with our 2019 Candidates Forum. Our next guest in studio is the incumbent councilman at large, Bill Lamb. Thank you for joining us today, Bill.
Absolutely. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you. And why don't you first start off, and just for people who may not know you already, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Bill Lamb. I'm currently the councilman at large, my second term. I was the mayor of Medina for 2 terms. Prior to that, I taught school in Medina City. And after I was mayor, I taught school. I restored the building that Cool Beans is in, started a coffee house. Then I went back to teaching school, and in 2011 I ran for city council. And I'm currently the executive director of the Community Design Committee, which is the organization that restored the square.
And then a question for when you first started, what was your first drive? I know you were mayor before, but what was your drive that made you decide to run for council? And has it changed as you head into this race this year?
No, you know, I think it's even it's changed, but it is different, but it's different in a really positive way. Being mayor was really a great opportunity for 8 years. I was the youngest mayor in Ohio, but you're virtually by yourself. You know, you have an administration, but decisions are ideas. Kind of you're an individual. And city council, the wonderful thing about being on city council is you have an administration to work with, but you also have 6 other people to collaborate with. And so you can have that kind of collegial discussion. You can dig deep into an issue, and you know, I might have a goal and bring it to city council, and we talk about it, and we may get to the goal, but in a different way because other people have other opinions. So when you can work like that, you know, at the end of the day, you really start to really value the experience of other folks' ideas and how other people feel about an issue if you are all focused on the same goal. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, in terms of, I guess, the backup lit for our residents that may not know, kind of explain the difference. Voting-wise, it's the same, but the difference between the councilman at large, kind of what it covers, versus someone that would be a councilman of a ward.
Sure. A ward councilman, there are 4, is really it's a more framed. They're framed differently than I am. They have 1 ward, so they're in these boundaries. And while we all work collaboratively on the larger community, each ward councilman is specific to their ward and elected just by their ward. The great thing, you know, the thing I've enjoyed the most about being a councilman at large is you have the whole city. And so you can work with, I can work with Eric Heffinger in Ward 3, or I can work with Denny Simpson in Ward 2. You know, we can work on issues together, but the 2 councilmen at large are outside of that framework. We have the whole city to work with.
So in terms of projects then, because obviously you're not focused, well, on a specific ward, you're kind of looking at the big picture. What are some of the initiatives you'd like to see if reelected?
Well, one thing I've worked on already is the sidewalk maintenance program. You know, it's important for us. Young people move to Medina, and young people are, you know, like a walkable community. So we implemented a sidewalk maintenance program so that we can begin from the center of town to address the sidewalk issue from the center out. Mm-hmm. And then this year we began the bike paths that have been striped on the streets, so you can ride through town, connect to the parks, come into town, and get out of town on a bike path. The other issues that we've worked on really that included the whole community, like Ward 2 is where the swimming pool was. We spent a couple of years trying to decide what to do with the pool. I mean, the pool was 8 feet of empty, you know, and it was closed down. And there was a discussion whether we should, you know, have a company run the pool, build the pool, have it be for profit. And we arrived at a really good decision and reconstructed the pool, and it was expensive, but it's been successful. And that's in Denny Simpson's ward, but that was, you know, the entire administration, all of council working together. right now the parking deck is a major project, a $3 million project to add 216 parking spaces to town that we really, really need.
Mm-hmm.
And the exciting thing about that is at the same time, we'll be building retail office space, living space in that same area, you know, right by the parking deck, which will bring people into the downtown. Current things I'm working on, we just did the community garden. And, you know, and the nice thing, I guess, is most of what we do and what folks do in the community isn't a me thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a collaboration and a partnership. The community garden, I was having a meeting with Girl Scouts about single-use plastic bags, and there were some women at the meeting, and after the meeting they formed a 501c3 called Sustain Ed, and shortly thereafter they decided they want to build a community garden. And my role was really pretty limited. Now, you know, I knew the commissioners, so I got the piece of property, helped them get the piece of property, helped them get insurance, and a few other things. And then they got collaborators from all over, and partners and volunteers, and in just weeks' time built, you know, this wonderful community garden. And I think that's what's important to understand is, you know, none of us are you know, we don't do it all. You don't do it all by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you collaborate and you work as partners and you get partnerships, you can accomplish so much more. And that's really what the community is best at.
And that's kind of a unique thing, I guess. In your opinion, what's the balance with, I guess the parking deck's a good example, where you're looking at possibly retail space and even housing possibilities there as well. What's the balance between residents and business and the relationship in terms of council?
Yeah, the balance is we have a great, right now we have and for a number of years really we've had a really good balance between the three. There are some communities where it's all residential. There's no industry. So the tax base is all, it's on the burden of the residents. In some communities, there's a lot of industry, and the residential areas may suffer. We have this golden egg, really, a balance of industry, of retail, and residential. And industry, I believe, pays about 50%. Is about 50% of the tax base that we use to operate the city, to provide city, you know, the general fund city services. So the balance really is to the benefit of the residents. It's great for industry because we have this super infrastructure. We're close to the interstate. We've got the rail line, and then the retail space, particularly in the historic district. The reason we're expanding it is because every single building is occupied, and there's a demand, a constant drumbeat and demand for more. And so on West Liberty, we'll be adding more retail space and office space and above living space. When we did the America's Best Community, we had a study done, and one thing that it pointed out is we were about 200 units short on middle to higher end apartments and condominiums. We really haven't addressed that substantially yet. I think there's maybe 20, 25 recently or almost ready to open. And this enables us, with the new growth that'll happen on West Liberty, to begin that expansion so that we can include more and address those areas of concern that were in that study.
Yeah, that's interesting to see that. And then I know council's been busy here during the term you're in now, and something that you'll face upon re-election would be the courthouse, the situation with the courthouse. Kind of talk us through your opinion and the process, how that's going so far.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because when I was mayor, the first year I was mayor, the municipal court was above an open pantry, to give you an idea of how low-key things were. And somebody, I think, who got a decision they didn't like, burned it down. So shortly after I was elected, we had no muni courts. We built a new one, and then here I am on city council, and we've decided we've outgrown the one we have. So the work that the mayor's done and the president of council really is unique because very few, if any, communities are able to combine a county courthouse with a municipal courthouse, a complex, and then meld them together so that not only do they work, but in their operation they save money for the county and they save money for the city. So it's a little bit more complex than it sounds like on the surface. And my sense is that with the work of the mayor and the president of council and the administration and the county commissioners, we can get there, but you know, the details are what are really a bit to work out. In late 60s, my wife spearheaded the effort to save the old courthouse when the county from the commissioner's wrecking ball, and what most of us on council would like to see now, and I think the community, is the courthouse that I call a new one, which is 50 years old, that we save that, or we save the facade of the courthouse so that the west side of the square, or the east side of the square rather, continues to have the same appearance. A lot of people have moved here in the last 50 years, and to the newer people, newer folks that have moved here, that is where they have taken their pictures. It's where veterans events have happened, and religious events. And so I think that's important, that we continue to protect the historic, integrity of that side of the square, but then be realistic and work with the commissioners, because if we can do this, it's not that it's going to be unique, but it is that in the end of the day, it'll save everybody a lot of money, and it'll operate better for anybody that's working there or people that have to go there. Yeah.
And now we kind of touched on two structural issues that the city is working on and developing, but then there's also the people side of things, and one of those is diversity and inclusion. That's kind of been an issue with council here this last regime, and then now upon re-election, kind of your thoughts on that.
Well, it has always astounded me, not only in our city but nationwide. We have continued to be, and I'm not quite sure how it happens. Other than the power structure, we've continued to be male dominated. The city's been a city for 200 years. I think we've had 9 women on city council. Wilda Bell was a person of color who lived on the west side of town. She was a president of council. She's the only person of color ever to serve on city council. And it isn't a game of, we need to have 2 women because we should have women, so it looks good. It's because more than 50% of the population is women. So whatever we can do, I think, to encourage that, that's what I have brought to the administration and the city council on a number of occasions, is we want to bring diversity in to ensure we're representing everybody. Realistically, you can't say, well, I can represent women just as well as a woman, because that's not exactly true. I think we all look at things a little bit different, and it's really healthy to get other people's views and other people's perspectives, which you can't get. I'm not a person of color, and I'm not a woman, and I have work to do both. To bring people of color and to bring women into the process that we have, and the equality legislation, which we worked on, was, to me, as I said at the time, of all the time I spent working either as a community organizer or in city government, the equality legislation really stands out to me as one of the most significant things. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't have had to be, because I am a white, straight male. And I wake up every morning and do what I do, and I never have to think that I could lose my job, be denied housing, or be denied public access to a restaurant or a place of business simply because I am a white, straight male. Why would we want anybody to be in that position? And so we cleaned that up. We dealt with that, and it was historic, and I'm proud of it. And it was a great thing to do. Yeah.
Now, as if the residents choose to re-elect and put you into council again, what are some of the obstacles or things you'd like to get accomplished in another term?
Well, one thing that we'll put in committee now, and hopefully I'll be here to see it through, is the comprehensive plan. We have a comprehensive plan that's older than it should be. It has caused us numerous issues because over a period of 10 or 11 years, lots of things change physically in a community. And we need to readdress them in a plan that's a plan that is updated. That's number one on the list. That is a priority to me. Also, in the last 10 years, I think I've worked with other people with partners to form 5 historic neighborhood associations. I'm working on a 6th neighborhood association that I hope we can get through. I'm going to continue to work on issues like the reducing plastic bags, like the Girl Scouts are doing. We're clearly not going to do it as a law, but we have a lot of ideas of how we can help the environment and teach young people at the same time. The Courthouse Project is an ongoing project, and it is important that there's a strong voice at City Hall with the commissioners to ensure that the historic nature of the square is maintained, and that we do work that out so that it's to the benefit of the county and the city, and we don't lose that. those are all key things, that I'm continuing to work on. And it's an interesting question because I've been asked the question before, and it's kind of a funny thing because so many things happen. I think we pass about 200 ordinances a year. They're about 200 ordinances a year, and the city has 1,000 moving parts every day, so lots of things just come up. But the real benefit of being on city council is you can look out into the community, and these are the things that we have to do to keep the operation going, to keep the services as they are, or to improve them and keep the costs down. But you can look out and find other things from that position, and it gives you the ability from that position to do other things, like the laundry program. When I had no idea about kids going to school in dirty clothes until someone brought it to my attention. And there was a partnership. I got a hold of, I worked with the schools, and I worked with the church, and I worked with a laundry. And we came up with an idea of how to fund this program. So now kids that go of lower income parents who are strapped for cash, they can do their laundry for free. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of things that just kind of come up. And so the question always is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do next? What are you going to do? Well, there are these specific things I know because I've already got them in the, they're already in the cooker. But there are other things, as long as you're willing to go out there and be open and listen and try to figure out what the problem is. That's the really exciting thing, because I always thought about food, okay, it's important that everybody has food. So we do a lot of the food stuff, Feeding Medina County and those things. But the laundry one really surprised me. I thought, that really makes a lot of sense, because I do laundry, and I like to have clean clothes, and I cannot imagine being a youngster in that position. And I think, as I looked at it, it causes bullying, it causes kids to do poorly in school, it causes kids to drop out. And further, when you look at it, it means if you don't have clean clothes, you probably don't have clean bedding, you don't have a clean coat. And this allows the folks that get the coupon, they can wash anything they want. And it sounds like a little thing, but to me, that's one of the things I really am happy that we were able to accomplish. Again, with other people, a lot of other people's help, yes.
Now, you just mentioned in there, in the part of that answer, listening. How do you play that balance, especially as a councilman at large, where you're dealing with a large group of people, knowing the behind the scenes and what needs to get done, but also still listening to that large number of constituents?
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because I hear some people say, well, you have to do, you really should do what the residents want. They want you to do this. And those are the things that you weigh, because sometimes, you know what? I might totally agree and think in the broader sense this is a good thing. And frequently the folks that are heard the least are just individuals in a residence who have really not a lot of power. And it's really important to listen. Sometimes you may want to do it, but it's not going to work. So I think it's a balance. It's not like, okay, these 50 people came and they want you to do it. No, that isn't how it works. It's not because the residents want it. Is it the right thing? So the listening part is you do need to listen to hear back, because the devil's in the details, and you don't get that unless you listen to people that actually are in the situation, living in the house, living on the street, living on the block, living on the certain side of town that have that issue, and then you work on it. And it really depends. I mean, whether it's an infrastructure issue, a street issue, or whatever it is, and then you make that decision. And sometimes, folks go away and they're not happy, but that is how life is, and you do your best, and hopefully they go away and understand that. Yeah.
Now, in that same respect, then you also have 6 other members of council. How's the working relationship, especially as we mentioned before, some of these issues that the city's going through? I'm sure people aren't always in agreement in terms of members of council. So I guess, how do you work those details among council members?
That's the fascinating part of that collegial kind of discussion, and walking away when you don't agree, and understanding that I just don't agree, and let it go. And John Coyne, who I don't think really gets a lot of credit for it, but if any, I've had a really good vantage point to watch him work for 8 years. If you watch how he manages city council, he exudes the demeanor of, we'll have a discussion, and I don't agree, he doesn't agree with you, but I just don't agree with you. And so that's really been passed along generally to people on city council, and really the swimming pool at Memorial was a good example. John was convinced that we should not build the outdoor pool, and we ought to do it at the rec center. And at the end of the day, we didn't do it at the rec center, we did do it here. but there's no carryover, like, you know what, I'm going to get you on the next issue because you didn't support me. I've not seen any of that. What I have seen is folks have a really solid, honest discussion, and as long as you're aimed at, you're aimed at the right goal, and you understand that, it works out fine. So I think the discussion is what's the healthiest thing, because you have a lot of talented people who you can discuss and try to work things out. And sometimes it takes a couple of years, like the pool. Sometimes it takes, just a meeting or two. It just really depends on the complexity and the sense of if the disparate feelings on city council. But really, as a working group, the majority of council, we work really well. And then the administration, of course, is probably the most professional administration the city's ever had. You couldn't ask for more.
And then, well, I guess that's a good point there too. How about the stability of the city moving forward into what could be another term for you?
Yeah, the financial stability, you mean?
Yeah, for the city, yeah.
Yeah, well, the financial stability, if you look at a lot of other communities, particularly through the last 10 years, who've had to lay people off or let people go, shrink down sizes of departments, that you've noticed that hasn't happened in the city. I mean, we have a full complement in the police department. We have a shade tree commission that is funded with $500,000 a year. We have, and it goes back to that balance again, we have Kimberly Marshall is the economic development director, and we got $1 million grant from the state in order to build the parking deck. There's this constant, search and work with and massaging of bringing in companies to help keep us thriving. We have a booming, really, industrial area. I think a lot of folks, if you've moved here they moved here recently, I'm not sure that people know it's even there because it's out on the west side of town. So the economy for us, we have a really strong economy, and that's what keeps the taxes down. That enables us to continue to provide really, really good services, which is a commitment from the administration as well as city council to keep, to try to keep costs as reasonable as we can, but keep the services, keep our services top notch, which is really, really what they are. And then John Coyne, again, back to the budget. I mean, we have a budget meeting tomorrow. We work on the 5-year budget, and I don't know, we meet every other week, sometimes more frequently. And for people that think like this is just an exciting job, or it's great to go, yeah, I'm on city council, look at me, or whatever. If you sit through a budget, you sit through budget meetings week after week and look through piles of, go down line by line. And John's a stickler for it. And that's one reason, because our budget isn't just the budget now for 2020. The budgets extend out for 5 years, so we can look 5 years ahead and say, okay, you know what? In 2024, this budget is going to need to be addressed, or what are we going to do with this department in order to meet, the service requirement, the requirements to provide the service. I don't know what other communities you can find that kind of detail in, and I think a lot of that credit goes to the President Council and the administration. And we begin at the beginning of the year, shortly after the new year, to begin working on the budgets for the next year, which is one reason that things, I think, we've been so consistently even in funding and keeping our departments at peak level.
Yeah, it's been and it's something the city's looking forward to hopefully continuing to do as well for the residents.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and the residents are looking forward to it too, because nobody wants to get less service and pay more money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, I appreciate you taking the time to answer questions, but I'm
yeah.
going to give you a moment here in case there's anything I forgot or a message you'd like to give to the voters yourself. This is your moment to do that, so I'll let you do that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think those are great questions, and it's always enjoyed working with you. And I think Medina, we have an awe-inspiring story that has been built on the backs and the brains of people for decade after decade after decade. And the real challenge now is to continue that story so that we don't look back in 10 years and say, well, it used to be this, but now it's not that anymore. And I think that when you put all the pieces in place, the things that you and I just talked about, and you're committed to the broader sense of what needs to be done in the community, not one issue, or not that issue over there, but the understanding that the city is a multitude of issues, and we rely on so many people to contribute to the process so that we continue to live and work and enjoy this great community that we have. And we've been blessed to have people all along that have been willing to work like that, so that the community can be such a shining example, I think, to everyone that comes to visit, people that come to live here, and folks that come to work.
Great. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Bill, for your time
Thank
today.
you.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Again, this is
Yeah.
Bill Lamb, the incumbent candidate for councilman at large. We wish you the best of luck this November.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.